Hi guys, sorry it's been a while since my last video. Just been really busy. I've got several videos in the can that I hope to edit soon. In the meantime, we're in something new, at least for us. This is a LT 5.3 L83 with a 10-speed, 10 L80 transmission. And like I say in all my videos about these LTs, it's just awesome. I really think that the 5.3 LT, whether you get an 8 or a 10 speed, should be the standard engine in a JK, at least for engine conversions. It's got everything. It's powerful, it runs on regular gas, it's high compression, it's got all the technology, you know, the CVVT, the direct injection and all that. When you combine it with this 10 speed, it's just phenomenal, because even though it's a smaller displacement engine, with 10 forward gears, you're always in the optimal power band. It's hard to explain, you really have to drive one, but even just like merging onto this freeway, you know how awesome the LT1 is, but with this 5.3 there's absolutely no effort, no stress at all. I was thinking back a decade when we were using the 4-speed transmissions, and even a decade before that we were using the 3-speed transmissions. When the 6L80 hit, that was a huge improvement, and then the 8-speed hit in the LT, and now the 10-speed. These high gear transmissions have really made a big step up in engine performance. I was a bit disappointed in the earlier high gear transmissions, whether it was the 7-speed Mercedes or the 8L90 or the 8-speed ZF that Chrysler uses. They just didn't seem right. They had some issues, whether it was clunking or hunting for gears, not knowing what gear it wanted to be in, or shifting too much. But I can tell you today, this 10L90 is dialed, and the new 8L90s are really good too. I don't want to discount those. The early ones definitely had their teething problems, but the newer ones are not only stronger than the 10L80, but they're shifting excellent now also. So what do we get with all these gears? Well, we get a small displacement engine that now can more efficiently use its output. I think a good example of that would be the new JL. If you look at the engine that's in the new JL and JT, it's essentially the same engine that was in the later model JKs, the 3.6 liter Pentastar. But combining it with the 8-speed transmission has made a big improvement. If you look at the 4-speed that the early JKs ran and compare that to the new JL, there's no comparison. If you look at the 5-speed, while it was an improvement over the 4-speed, it's still no comparison to the new 8-speed. So now you take a big V8 and you put a 10-speed in it, and it just changes the game. Now it allows this little 5.3 liter engine to do whatever you want. We're pushing over 350 horsepower, but now we got a transmission that allows us to do whatever we want. Because this engine is always in its power band, and if you look at the diversity of gearing, going from about 4.7 low to 0.6 overdrive, that means we have a wider selection of axle and transfer case gearing to select from. In fact, going up this parkway right now, I think I went from 10th gear to 9th, and the engine's just sailing along with no stress. It's not like it's lugging in a tall gear or over-revving in a short gear. It's right where it wants to be. Let's not forget, this is a smaller displacement 5.3 with the 10-speed that costs less than the big guys and is going to perform right up there with them. At the same time, it's as docile as can be. You guys have heard me say this a lot of times. These engines just sit there and tick over at 500 to 600 RPM. Your wife will feel at home driving it to the store. But when you get on it, you get all the power you need, and more than that, when you want to pass on the highway, you want to cruise at 80 miles an hour, you're going up a steep grade in Utah, the power is going to be there for you. You're not going to struggle. Even the 3.6 liter with the 8-speed, you put 40s on it, 1 tons, a lot of drag, and they start struggling at altitude. This engine is not going to struggle so much. What are some of the other benefits of this engine? Well, they're inexpensive. And I'm not going to use the word cheap, because when I say inexpensive, I mean you're getting a lot for your money, value for dollar. You're getting an engine that has direct injection, 11:1 compression ratio that runs on regular gas. You're getting a lot of technology. In fact, this engine has the active fuel management, or DOD, 4-cylinder mode active, and it's not annoying at all. With this 10-speed transmission, it almost seamlessly goes in and out. You can barely perceive it, and it's going to get us better economy. So we got an engine that runs on regular gas, that's going to get better economy, that's going to put the power level out of the previous generation's high-performance engines. There really is no downside, and it's going to do that at a lower cost. A lot of guys tend to overlook the transmission. In the early days with the JK, we only had about 200 horsepower. I think it was 202 horsepower and about 200 foot-pounds of torque. And Jeep's philosophy with the Wrangler always was that it was an off-road vehicle. Didn't really have to cruise on the highway at 80 miles an hour to get to the trail. Once it was on the trail, it worked great. So they always underpowered the Wranglers. Now, yeah, some of the early AMC V8s and all that, those were fine, but those were also roll bait. They were short coupled high vehicles with big engines, and I actually had a friend that had a CJ5 that I called roll bait. But we're just talking about the TJs, YJs, LJs. In general, they didn't have a whole lot of horsepower. They were meant to wheel, and they did that well. I think what Chrysler underestimated is when they released the four-door JK, it became a phenomenon. It became the off-road vehicle that you could put your family in or go expedition, which really you couldn't do with the old two-doors efficiently. And that highlighted the deficiencies of the small V6 engine, because now we're piling these Jeeps down with refrigerators and gas cans and skid plates and bigger tires so that we can get more axle clearance, and the little 200 horsepower V6 just couldn't handle it. Now, I will say that the 3.8 was really not that bad of an engine. For its intended purpose, it worked well. But when they put it in the JK, it was loaded down, and then they burdened it with the 42 RLE 4-speed transmission, which robbed horsepower, created a lot of heat. It just took the heart out of that engine. I've always argued that if you put an efficient 8-speed behind the 3.8, it would have been a much better powertrain, and it would have much better suited the JK. But it got stuck with that 4-speed. Then we went to the 5-speed. And while the WA580 was definitely a step up, it still wasn't the solution. The WA580 had its own issues. The gearing was a little bit goofy. It still wasn't a low drag, low friction, adaptive clutch-to-clutch transmission like the modern transmissions. Now, I want to say that GM did go away from the clutch-to-clutch in the 8090 and the 1080. I'm not sure why. They had their own reasons for that, but I have read a lot of technical articles of what they have done, and they've essentially got these transmissions running right up there. They can shift just as quick as the earlier clutch-to-clutch transmission. The 8090 is extremely strong, capable of handling, I think it's 770 foot-pounds of torque, and even more than that in the short term. The 10L80 is just a dream. There's really no tuning required. I think GM spent a lot of time hammering that out. The 8090 required characterization and solenoid learning and some other things to make them work right. You had to actually drive the things to learn the torque characteristics, where the 10L80 just seems to be pretty good right out of the box. So getting back to the early Jeep, I think we can all agree that the 3.8 4-speed JK was underpowered on the highway. While it worked pretty good off-road, it didn't inspire a lot of confidence on-road. The 5-speed was an improvement, but it was really an incremental improvement. I think the 8-speed ZF has really transformed the JL into something that you can drive on a daily basis. You can cruise it up the highway at 80 miles an hour. It'll do what you want it to do. I do think that if you have a really heavy JK and you go to larger tires, that powertrain is going to struggle, and that's where this 5.3 comes in. I think if you take a step above the 3.6, this direct injected 11-to-1 LT53 with a 10-speed is going to do what the 3.6 8-speed can't. It's very difficult to describe the sensation of driving a direct injected high compression LT engine with a 10-speed transmission. It's just completely low stressed. It's almost like you have a 1-speed. You hear a low tone. You don't really feel the transmission shifting. Whenever you give it throttle, it just pulls. It just pulls you, and there is no downshifting. There is no drama. It's just a different sensation. With the V6, you get on it and it revs up, and you can hear the motor. You can feel the transmission shifting. Completely different animal. In fact, we just went into a 4-cylinder mode. I'm sure you guys can't hear it, and most guys probably wouldn't know you're a 4-cylinder right now. So again, that goes back to the technology and what you're getting for your money. Now, every day I get somebody call me and say, do I want to get a 6-liter LS or a 5.3 LT? And that just depends. The performance of the 6-liter LS with a 6-speed and the LT 5.3 are very similar. Both engines have the ability to be modded and get quite a bit more horsepower. The 6 liters, you know, is very conservative. So with just some tuning, you can get it into 375, 380 horsepower range. And guys get them over 400 horsepower all the time. And the 5.3 now, just like the LS 5.3 is proving, it can be a monster. The 5.3 with the 10-speed and the L96 with the 6-speed are both phenomenal engines. And I think what it's going to come down to is your budget and your need. Budget, in general, the 6-liter was cheaper. And I say was because GM pretty much dropped most of the LS engines about 2014, 2015 era. And they're getting harder to find. The prices on low mileage clean motors is going up. Fortunately, the 6-liter was used right up through 2020 by GM in their heavy-duty truck line. So it was in new production. and you can still get them new today. You can still get the LS3 new today. Most of the other LSs, like the LS 5.3s and truck 6.2s, are obsolete. You're not going to find them easily new. Today, I think you can still pick up a 6-liter for less money than a L83, but at some point in the future, that's going to change as the 6-liters get less and less and the 5.3s get more and more. In fact, when the 5.3s first came out back in 14, I remember paying, I think, $6,000 for one, and like $7,000 or $8,000, maybe $9,000 for a 6.2 L86, because there just weren't any out there to be had. But today, obviously, that has changed. You can pick up these 5.3s all day long. GM has jumped in with both feet with the 10L80, and I'm really happy they have, because it's an awesome transmission. I think after the teething pains of the 8L90, GM said we want something that's rock solid right out of the gate. And while they have corrected the problems in the 8L90, in my opinion, I think that because the launch of the 10L80 was so uneventful that they're going to eventually phase out the 8-speed and go to the 10-speed. So what that means for you is you can get yourself a direct injected high compression LT powertrain with a 10-speed for a reasonable amount of money. So one is cost, and two is what do you do? If you are going to cross a desert, you're going to go to Johnson Valley and thrash it. You're going to go into Mexico or Canada where you may not know what the quality of the gas is. Get the 6-liter. The 6-liter is like a toilet bowl when it comes to fuel. You can pretty much put anything into it and it's going to run. The 6-liter is iron. It can handle the heat. It can handle the cold. The 6-liter does not have active fuel management. The 6-liter does have variable valve timing, but I haven't found that to be a problem. The 6-liter is basically extension of the small block Chevy from many years ago. Very simple, a lot fewer parts, and just based on probability, since the 6-liter has a lot less parts to fail, the failure rate is going to be low. Also, the 6-liter has been out for well over a decade. GM's been running them in their trucks. Guys have been beating these trucks up. GM has learned how to hold that motor together. So if you want a motor that's about as indestructible as you can get the 6-liter with the 6L80. I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you're a techno nerd guy, you love technology, you want the awesome 10-speed transmission, then get the LT. While you're not limited to the 5.3, you can go with the 6.2, and there's finally some new variants coming out. You know, we got the L82, the L83, the L84, the L87. Here's my opinion. The 5.3 with the 10-speed is going to cover 80% of you guys out there. You're going to have plenty of horsepower, you're going to have excellent drivability, you're going to have good performance off-road and on-road. Now, for the guy that's got the 40s, 1 tons, tows a trailer, goes to Colorado at high altitude, then, yep, go with the 6.2 LT. We probably will support the 6.6 liter at some point, but I know GM has been working on that engine, and when they become available, we'll let you know. We are doing an L87 right now, which means we will be doing an L84 soon, and that's essentially the same motor as this, but they changed it up with dynamic fuel management, which allows you to run as a 2-cylinder, 3-cylinder, 4-cylinder. I think it has 17 different cylinder modes that you can run in. And guys, you know I tell you how much I love the LT1, and I do. It's awesome. It's phenomenal. It's got a lot of horsepower. It's got excellent drivability. But it costs $30,000, and to be honest, it has more power than most of you guys need. There's a difference between need and want. Need is, can I get my JK down the highway without slowing traffic up? Can I go up that grade without the engine revving up and stressing me out because I think I'm going to throw a rod? The LT is beyond that. The 5.3 will give you all of that. It'll take your JK wherever you want to go. It will do it with, and I'm going to say, class-leading fuel economy, and the reason I say that is I've been driving Hemis, I've been driving LSs, I've been driving all these engines, and these little 5.3s seem to average out about the best economy. Now, I'm not going to get into the discussion about cubic inches versus efficiency, because I think there are times that the larger engines can outperform the smaller engines with efficiency, and that's exactly why the smaller V6s don't get better mileage than these V8s in a lot of circumstances. So it's a phenomenal powertrain, and I know I say that with pretty much LT I drive, but it's true. It doesn't really matter if you have an 8-speed or a 10-speed, a 6.2 or 5.3, they're all awesome. Now, I will say that if you do get an LT, you might want to move up to an 8 or a 10-speed. I think the 6-speed is an excellent transmission, but its days are coming to an end. Once these manufacturers started reaching the law of diminishing returns in the engine, they looked at the transmission, and that's why you saw this quick evolution of 4-speed to 6-speed to 8-speed, now to 10-speed. But I think we're going to stop here for a while. I don't see us going much more than 10 speeds. And I can see where they're going with this. Just driving this 5.3 on this little country road, I'm in a 4-cylinder. I've been a 4-cylinder. And this 10-speed is keeping this little 5.3 right where it wants to be. The motor has not revved up once going up and down these mountains. I can't even tell what gear I'm in. I could put a gauge on it and monitor what gear I'm in, but there's no reason to, because I don't need to. It's doing exactly what it needs to do, and it's doing it completely low stressed and effortless. So put it all together at the 5.3 with the 10-speed. You get good value for dollar, and before somebody comments, these swaps are running in the low 20s right now at our shop at Motec. That's going to include virtually a new engine, and when I say virtually new, we're buying takeouts. Because GM is a new production on this engine, there's engines that come off the line, there's engines that are auctioned off, there's engines that maybe a new train load of Silverados got in a hailstorm and they had to disassemble it. But most of these engines have between 2 and 10 miles. If you look at them, they look virtually brand new. So that's probably what you're going to get. And if you say, hey, I want a new crate engine, you can get it. It costs a little bit more money. Same thing on the 10-speed. We're using new or takeouts. And these 10-speeds we're getting, again, look new in the crate. Some of them might have 5 miles, some of them have maybe 20 mile. But the bottom line is they're virtually new. So you're getting a lot of value for 20-something grand. And I'm going to say the low 20s because there's options. What are the options? Heavy-duty drive shafts. I think you should go for those. In some cases you don't have to, but I think it's a good investment. Heavy-duty cooling. Everybody should get heavy-duty cooling. Jeeps go into the mountains at high altitude. Jeeps go into hot places. They go off-road and crawl. So invest in the cooling system. I'm going to say something a little bit about that. Get the heavy-duty radiator and fan. That's going to be enough for most of you guys. I find that if you add the rail coolers to that, the engine oil and the transmission cooler, that's pretty much most of you guys need. If you've got 40s, if you tow a trailer, if you put your Jeep under a lot of strain, then we have some other options with off-board coolers with fans. Most of you guys won't need that though. So to wrap it up, I think this is going to be the basic powertrain that most of you guys are going to need. If you want more, we're going to offer more. So I've got some videos in the can on cooling systems. We've got a couple of LT4s coming up. I got another LS coming up, and I'll say that we are selling a lot of LS kits. And I think what's happening is a lot of these JKs are aging. A lot of guys are paying their JKs off. They're getting tired of the 3.8 liter performance or even the 3.6 liter Pentastar performance, and they want to step up to something better. So we're going to do a video here on a 6.2 liter L94 LS 6L80, and it's a great combination. We're going to be doing an LT5 build, guys. That's going to be really exciting. That engine has a lot of horsepower. It's got a pretty unique control system where it runs 16 injectors. It's got a separate module to control port injectors just so it can get that extra horsepower. When you go into boost, you got to have fuel in that engine, and GM found a way to put as much extra fuel in the engine as you want to push 1,000 horsepower safely. And I think that's something we have to recognize with GM. GM, I think, has always been a company that wants you to use your vehicle like a standard vehicle. Go to a regular gas station and get the power that they're advertising without doing anything special. So I think I've yacked enough. We're going to take this 5.3 LT to the mountain, and we'll see you soon.